Luke, Adam, Jed, Gethin, collectively the Struts.
Hello.
Welcome to The Right Note.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And welcome to Australia.
Thank you.
So the song we just heard then, well, the first song we heard, Body Talks, you actually released a version of that where you did a collaboration with Kesha.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about?
It came about, we met her quite a while ago. We were playing like a college show together. And we ended up just chatting, as you do, in the canteen area.
Right.
And yeah, we sort of like hit it off straight away. And Jed kind of kept in touch with her quite a while. And after writing well, I say the original, but the band version of Body Talks, we were discussing, you know, that it would be great to have like a duet at some point on the album. And Body Talks just seemed to be perfect for that. You know, it's written about two people meeting in a nightclub on the dance floor, all written within that moment. And yeah, we just kind of like reached out to her and she said yes straight away. I mean, the funny thing is I went and flew into LA to do the vocals with her.
Yep.
And she didn't even know the song. I was like, what do you mean? You said yeah. She goes, yeah, but I heard the first 10 seconds, that riff, and I just said, yeah, I'm in. So,
that was enough.
Yeah, it was enough.
And what was the actual recording process like with her?
It was great. Honestly, as you probably heard, there's like a bunch of like laughing and screams and a lot of cool ad-libs, and that was done in the last hour. I just said, look, I think we should just set up a mic and me and you just, you know, get around it and we'll just play the song from start to finish. And we did, and we just had like a cool couple of takes of just, you know, dancing around and stuff. And you can genuinely hear all the fun that we were having.
Yeah, good one. And so it's off the album Young and Dangerous. But I was wondering, when did you guys actually get time to write and record that? Because you've been touring pretty extensively for the last 2 to 3 years. When did it all get pieced together?
Just in between touring. I think it was, what year are we in? 2019. So start of 2017 we started writing, and then we went on tour, and it was just a case of wherever we had time off, we'd just go to a studio and kind of start writing or trying to record ideas down, and it was just accumulation of doing that in between free time off touring. So
yeah, fun part of the album creation, we've got some that have recorded in Nashville, some in LA, some in New York, some in London, Bournemouth. So it's quite an international record.
Global album, yeah. Is there a pressure associated with that? If you've got a day off and you have to go into the studio, what if inspiration doesn't strike?
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's I mean, not only was it the second album, and you know, it was following up what we thought was a very strong debut that we were very proud of. So, you know, we had this like pressure that we wanted to be on par with that, or at least, you know, top it. So there was that, and then, I mean, like Adam said, it was recorded here, there, and everywhere. So it was very challenging when we would, you know, me and Ads would land in the UK after doing like a small run in the US, and you have jet lag, and you know, I remember being in the studio and Adam was like playing this riff, and I fell asleep for like probably 25 minutes, and I'm like waking up, and Adam is still there like doing the same riff.
not if you woke up, that means it's a good riff. But no, but we spent, you know, we'd squeeze our brains from like 10 o'clock in the morning till like 11 o'clock at night, just trying to come up with stuff. And then we'd go back to the hotel and just be like, oh my God,
there was
brain hurts.
There was definitely a point, especially the last few months before we kind of handed it in, that we really didn't know what was good and what was not.
Really?
And in fact, you know, going back to Body Talks, that was actually a song that was done in the last little, you know, few weeks / a month of the creative process. And I remember, like, we didn't even know, like, if it was good or not.
Yeah, we played it to them, and then they were like, this is great. We're like, no, it's not.
We were like, is it? You know? Challenging, but I think we did a great job.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we should be very proud of what we achieved.
Yeah. Do you hear the road work in the album? Like all the touring that you've done and everything you've learned over the past couple of years, do you hear it in the songs that you end up writing?
I think you can. I think you can hear I think you can hear the band developing as musicians. I think we did quite a lot from the debut and leading up to the recording of the second album, you know, including the Foo Fighters tour that we did. We were sort of still recording in between that as well. And all the touring that we did in America as well before, it kind of gave us like a real taste of like what really works with our audience. So that was very informative. We could kind of like draw upon that.
Yeah.
But I think we all developed as well quite a lot.
Yeah, well, that's what I was wondering. How do you think you are different as a band from the band that wrote Everybody Wants compared to...
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
So like the majority of the songs on the debut were written about 2011. When we released it in America, re-released it, we wrote a couple more, but those songs are really old. So like Luke said, we kind of all developed as musicians, and we got more ambitious, I think, just by touring and, you know, how can we push it on this second one? So the arrangements are definitely more elaborate on this album.
Yeah,
I think from playing live as well, you can see what the audience like feeds off.
Yeah.
So if, like we'd throw in like a new song every now and then, and like if it's not going down well, you kind of rethink, oh, what's, you know, is that the bridge or?
Yeah, yeah.
I think some of the subject matter on this album as well is you know, dare say, you know, it's ironic. It's called Young and Dangerous, but some of it's a little bit more mature.
Right.
But I always think that's something that makes us really special and unique, is that we can, you know, we're not just always talking about sex, drugs and rock and roll. You know, I mean, we like to tackle things, you know, that are close to everybody's heart, but some things that people don't really like to talk about much.
What in particular?
I mean, there's a song, well, it's kind of like a two-part story. You've got Fire Part 1 going into Ashes Part 2. Fire Part 1, you know, is telling a story of two young lovers, you know, who sort of like are burning within the moment, you know, something that I'm sure everyone has kind of like experienced, you know, that first love that you have, and you have this like unbreakable connection. And then, you know, Ashes Part 2 is the slightly more sobering reality of like, you know, if you stay together, one of you has to go first. And it basically talks about that. Something that our label at the time were very surprised that we'd done.
Right.
But it kind of, it wasn't premeditated as such. It was just like that, the initial lyric for Ashes came about, and then that's when I had the idea, like we should try and, you know, make this a part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, nice one. And I've seen an interview where I think you were saying that you kind of want to bring back like a new era of glam, referencing bands like Queen and the Stones and Bowie. What are the sort of biggest obstacles you've come across to achieve that goal?
Well, I think some of the biggest obstacles are just being a band in 2018 going into 19. I mean, I think, you know, for quite a while it's been difficult for any group, you know, who's playing rock music. And then, you know, just to make things more difficult for ourselves, I guess we've lived and died by our own sword. You know, that means staying true to a vision, which is bringing, visually anyway, like glam into the 21st century. So that's been difficult. But, you know, whether it's going off into America, going into Japan, coming here to Australia, and, you know, really sort of feeling that our music and the Struts, as, you know, and everything that comes with that is resonating with people, that keeps you motivated and that inspires us even more. So it has been difficult in some areas, but, you know, evidently, look, we're here, you're talking to us, so we've got to be doing something right.
Yeah. Well, the success that you started having in the States, that must have gone a long way to actually bolstering you, I imagine. Because from what I understand, in the UK, prior to that, things were a little tougher.
And they still are. You know, they still are in a lot of ways. I mean, when we think about radio play, for instance, in the UK, we still really haven't had any mainstream radio support, which has been frustrating because we've seen what that can do to a band or artist, you know, going into the United States, for instance. I mean, before we even stepped foot, one of our songs, Could Have Been Me, was suddenly, you know, flying up into the charts, and it was a great experience. But it's great now because we've stuck by our guns. We have been going back to the UK despite the lack of, you know, mainstream radio support. And now we're about to embark on our biggest and greatest UK tour, you know, which includes sold out show at Shepherd's Bush, Rock City in Nottingham,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
all sort of like iconic and great venues.
Yeah, that's great. With some of the support you've done, Foo Fighters, Rolling Stones, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, Killers, out of all those bands, who has the hardest crowd to warm up?
It's, you know what, it's really difficult to say because for most of those, we've only done, you know, 1 or 2 shows. Like with the Stones, for example, we've supported them now 3 times. The first time was in Stade de France, you know, 75,000 people, stadium. Quite a difficult show, just because it was long ago. We didn't really have a crew, really. I mean, I think we had Adam's cousin driving us there, and then that was about it, really. But, you know, fast forward a couple of years later, and we ended up doing a show with them in Italy and Switzerland, and both were absolutely fantastic.
Great.
But I think that kind of was because we had our own sound guy who kind of knew how to write the music properly. We had lights. The Foo Fighters, I'd say, was particularly brilliant. I mean, we were on and off with them for about like a year, and I was getting up on stage and singing Under Pressure with sort of like duetting with me and Taylor Hawkins while Dave was on the drums.
Wow.
So once that kind of happened, I mean, it was going great anyway, but once that performance happened, the first of many, which went on to be every single night, I think the hardcore fans were like, you know, watching it on YouTube, and then all of a sudden, very quickly after that, we were running on, and people were actually rushing to kind of like check us out, you know, as soon as like the doors opened.
Yeah.
So all of them been great, to be honest.
Yeah, that's excellent. Have you got a chance to chat? When you were with the Stones, did you get a chance to actually chat to them? And
We did briefly. The first time in France was, we would learn to be a very rare and special thing where we watched the sound check and Mick came over and said hello, and we chatted for like 15, 20 minutes.
wow.
And then after that, we kind of realized, you know, that was extremely special. And, you know, whether it's Guns N' Roses, for instance, and, you know, even Motley Crue as well, everything is very locked down and, you know, understandably, it's like very high security. And look, we're not just going to just end up knocking on Keith Richards' door, you know, like, hi, how's it going? It's just, I think there's an etiquette that you have to kind of follow when you're doing those slots, which is why the food was so special. I mean, I think it was the first or second night, we're all there in the dressing room and Taylor Hawkins comes in, you know, and it's like, hey guys, how's it going? You know, and then Dave walked in, and then, you know, Pat every other night. you
Yeah,
know.
nice.
And we would just chat, and it was a very genuine thing. So we were very lucky.
Yeah, and the other song we're going to hear today, Could Have Been Me. It sounds like a real sort of statement of intent, those lyrics. Was it written as a sort of, with that in mind?
It was. Me and Ads at that point were under a lot of pressure from the powers that be, we'll call them that, to sort of to basically reconsider and think long and hard about what it was that we were doing and what we wanted to be, how we wanted to look. And, you know, we just kind of got to the point where we were like, you know what, no, we are doing something right. Even though we didn't really have any success to kind of confirm that, we had an extreme amount of self-belief, and that song came out of that. It was like, you know, look, if we're going to do this, let's do it our way, and let's live and die by our own sword. And that's how the song came about. I mean, we would have these moments even before that where we would be so low and down in the dumps, you know, living in Derby. It was just the two of us at the time. And I'd be like, come on, Ads, let's get dressed and let's glam up and let's go to the fucking supermarket. And we would end up doing our shopping in fur coats and our boots and everything just to make us feel special again for about a minute.
That's how bored we were.
That's how bored we were as well. But yeah, that song really kind of came out of that frustration and you know, / inner belief.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, thanks very much for coming on the show, guys. Great
Thanks
to
for having
have
us,
you.
mate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.